I'm Taia Eilertsen and I'm an English teacher at the girls' school, and today I'm just going to be talking about how we combated cultural capital during the lockdown. Obviously we know that this is one of the things that we need to work on in order so that the girls have essentially all the tools and the knowledge that they need to go into any institution that they would like longer sort of term down the road. And so the introduction just kind of outlines exactly as Bordeaux does, which is what Ofsted take this idea of cultural capital from. And Bordeaux defines it as this sort of intangible knowledge and mannerisms and behaviours that upper class students have that working class students do not. And so actually with lockdown that became quite prominent, and it widens the gap, obviously economically with people losing their jobs, but also socially and culturally. So this is some of the things that we did in order to help with that. With regards to access, that was one of the things that obviously came up. So we signed up for the National Theatre so that the girls had access to every single play that had been recorded, and we gave them login details. We also followed this up with discussion and reflection questions on Teams so that they could reflect and just talk about it, and that would encourage them by default to go on and watch them. So that was one thing that we did. We also joined Audible so that every student could access audiobooks, and this has been found by the National Literacy Trust to really help with reading skills and enjoyment of reading, as well as comprehension and emotional intelligence. And it also, really importantly, I think, widens children's access to books. Often a whole novel can seem a little bit intimidating, and so actually Audible is a really good way to break down barriers to reading and to just get them listening and reading to something. So that's one of the things that we signed up to as well. We also, there was a lot of discussion within our department about using lockdown and this time of isolation to be creative, and poetry is a really good outsource for that. So we were going to study term 6 poetry, and we had a real focus on creative writing and expression and storytelling, because these feelings and this kind of really unique experience that nobody had experienced kind of before in this kind of way, we thought, okay, how can we put this to paper? How can we create a creative outlet for them? And so we had poetry competitions and creative writing competitions about writing in isolation. And obviously we linked this to great authors like Oscar Wilde, who wrote some of his stories in prison, and other writers as well. On the other side of this had a kind of real well-being focus, because the National Literary Trust found that in lockdown, writing poems, fiction, songs and letters made, on the whole, students feel a lot better. So obviously if we go back into that situation again, it's something to definitely kind of bear in mind. One of the things that I really enjoyed about teaching during lockdown was that we could have this almost forum of knowledge that we hadn't really had before. And so one of the things that I do now, so that to kind of keep teams purposeful, is given classroom discussion, we were studying Christmas Carol, and we were speaking about the role of public executions, which obviously at the time was still occurring. And so one of the things that we know as a school, actually non-fiction is something that we need to work on. And again, thinking about cultural capital, ensuring that all the girls have all the knowledge that they need to be successful and to really nourish the curriculum that we have here. I started uploading extra non-fiction articles, or perhaps literary articles, depending on sort of which way the conversation went, sometimes both. And this was really low stakes, so I would just post it and say, I've attached, some of the language is difficult, it is challenging, but have a go, and then I would provide them with prompt questions as well. Now this was really interesting because I will show you kind of on the next slide another example. Again, I would do it different for each of my classes, so I wouldn't just give them the same non-fiction or literary article, they would get different ones. And this was important because we really want to encourage personal voice, and that's a really big aspect of cultural capital. How can we create independent and ambitious thinkers? So this is one of the things that I still use Teams for, and I will upload conversations and literary critics as well. I will upload actual academic journals, and I'll say, right, these are the things you're going to find difficult, but you know what, have a go, and then we'll address some of the things that they really liked about it. Some of them really ran with it and would write paragraphs of reflection on what they'd read. And I think the important thing that sort of Mary Myatt was talking about is that children love to rise to the challenge, and it was not compulsory, I would say. It's optional, but because they would come in with it and I would print it out, there would never be any copies left. They would always take it, they would want to read it, and they were often really short, so it was manageable as well. And the implementation of this was obviously very straightforward, just uploading it and then discussing it in class and having debates around it. But I found that in their recent assessment, they had actually referenced a lot of these critics and also their vocabulary and style of writing because of being exposed to different material, especially academic, and because of all the work that we'd been doing with stories and sort of hooks, that they had referenced them. So you'll see here Elliot Gilbert, a critic who believed that Scrooge's redemption is irrelevant and that the fantasy-like nature of the novella meant that the moral was in place. And here we've got Edmund Wilson, the Scrooge problem. Dickens neglects the fact that spiritual growth takes time. However, this is beside the point. The point is that you can always redeem yourself. It is redemption itself that is the most poignant part of the novella. So you've actually got students arguing and engaging with the literary critic. That is made possible because of Teams and how easy it is to kind of have that discussion. And often the girls will kind of really run with this and, keep the discussion. It's something that we've referred back to quite a lot. So these are just some of the ways that as an English department we have tried to create a buzz about learning and to really stretch and challenge them during a really difficult time, both creatively and academically. If you have any questions, then please do email me at taia@woolwichpoly.co.uk, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.